Risk of Rain is a masterpiece I think more people should play. I'm not the first person to say it, nor will I be the last. Almost everything about it is great, from the gameplay, to the characters, to the items, to the replayability. It's all one perfect little package that costs just over half of what a AAA game does. Mind you, that's with the Deluxe Edition, which has the base game and its 2 DLCs. I could keep this bit up, make you think this is going to be a Risk of Rain review, but I'm going to guess that if you're watching this, you're also literate. That, or this was just your autoplay video, in which case you're either not paying attention or asleep because no one actually uses autoplay. I was going to put like a really loud noise here, but no. It was very tempting though, just know that. Just like any other influential game, there's bound to be people who will take inspiration from it for their own game. And well, that's where the game of today's video comes in. Warden's Will. Warden's Will is a game. Only the hottest takes on my channel, I know. They're released on the 8th of January this year, and let me just... See this? See this right here? It's a band-aid. I ripped it off. This game is really, really rough right now. And if you'd be willing to give me however many minutes this video turns out to be, I think I can explain to you why. But before that, obligatory disclaimer. I'm making this video because I can see a lot of potential in this game. I'm not making it just to shit on this indie team. I've played a lot of bad or underwhelming games, but Warden's Will has something to it that actively makes me want to talk about it because, with some work, I genuinely mean it when I say this could be a worthy contender to Risk of Rain, but right now, it's complicated, really complicated. Also, just know that this video is supposed to be entertaining. I'm probably gonna fail, but you know, there's an attempt that's being made. So, a lot of my reactions will get played up, and I will make jokes at this game's expense. You know, it's just like the standard YouTuber stuff. I want to start by talking about the story, and to tell you that, we gotta go to the Steam page. That's the story. About 2 lines of text. Yeah, this game doesn't have any kind of lore to speak of. There is an intro cutscene, beautifully animated. Seriously, I could watch this intro all day. It gives literally no kind of story. This game just drops you in the hub and that's it. The only narrative to speak of is on this game's Steam page. I'm not coming into this expecting like a deeply riveting tale with twists and turns, gut-wrenching betrayals, betrayals, and all that other Shakespeare stuff, but even literally anything beats nothing. The only time I think no story is acceptable is when it's a sandbox game, and the worst part is, even some of those manage to sprinkle a story in there somewhere. I mean it when I say even the slightest motive would have been enough. It literally could have been like a single line of text that shows up after the intro cutscene that said the Necro God, the final boss, stole the Warden's sandwich and they want to get it back. Like, it's like, that would have been enough. It would have at least been something, but the game just kind of drops you in without any kind of fanfare. Stuff is just happening, and I have no reason to care or be invested, but at the end of the day, a story is an integral for a good game. How would I describe the gameplay of Warden's Will? Well, you know how in Risk of Rain there's the one teleporter, right? Boom. I'm joking, kind of, but hey look, if a gameplay loop isn't broken, why fix it? You played Risk of Rain, you've played this. You drop in, you kill enemies to get money, you use that money to get items, or in this game's case, upgrades, which let you kill enemies better, which let you get more gold, which let you get more items, or again, in this game's case, upgrades, rinse and repeat until you choose to leave the level. Well, kind of. There's a big difference here. To charge teleporters, or transmitters to give them the proper name, they need this green stuff that you only get when you kill enemies. I'm very sorry, I know it definitely has a name, I just forgot it. I'm gonna be completely honest, this feels like it needs tweaks, because it's literally just the teleport mechanic, but with extra steps. It still forces you to interact with an object and stay in an area for a prolonged period of time, but now you also have to make sure that you have enough green stuff, and do it 3 separate times. And it just kills the pace, early on at least, when not a lot of enemies are spawning in. Later on, they spawn so much, it becomes pointless because you have too much green stuff. Not only that, but the area that you have to stay in is really, really small, and still takes about 30 seconds or so to fully complete. You have to do something about it. I think if you made the area like 20% bigger, it would automatically be much less annoying, especially later on, because later on, you gotta like dance in and out of the area because it just gets that hectic. It feels like it's even smaller than it is in Risk of Rain's Eclipse. Like, it feels tiny. I don't know if that's just me. Even though actually using the transmitters is kind of a pain, getting to them couldn't be any more satisfying because of the characters.
Wow, that was a cool transition, George.
The characters, or Wardens, are definitely the highlight. For the most part, I think they're all great. They all have three aspects: their executable, their ultimate, and their traversal. The executable is just your standard ability, works on a cooldown, does this specific action when you press the button, and the ultimate takes a lot longer to charge up, but in turn is much more powerful, standard hero shooter stuff. The traversal though, well, that's where things get interesting. Pressing shift will activate a character's traversal, and each one has a very distinct method of moving. Flyer is your starting character, and because of that, he was just bound to be the one I like the most. I don't know why it is with me and starting characters, but I don't know. His traversal is, you never guess this, flying. You'll constantly propel yourself in the direction you're looking, and if you're going down while you're using it, you go really fast. And his executable drops a bunch of bombs just behind him, which doesn't do much normally, unless you're flying, in which case it spreads them out a lot more, covering a wider area. To get real use out of it, you need to be flying, which honestly, I like. It's a lot of fun just carpet bombing a bunch of enemies out of existence. And his ultimate is lock on missiles. Doesn't really get much more simple than that. Then there's Dasher, and you'll never guess what his traversal is. But he decides to double down, with his executable also being a dash that leaves a trail of explosives just behind him. And his ultimate just lets him go absolutely hammer a bunch of enemies, slashing them all at once. He's this game's Adderall character. You know exactly what I mean when I say that. He's constantly moving, zipping and dashing all over the place. Also really fun. Hoverer hovers, say that 5 times fast. She trades horizontal movement for vertical movement because she can go really high up, but Jesus Christ, trying to traverse the map is painful. I think you could maybe up her hover speed a bit because she feels so slow compared to everyone else, but besides that, she's great. She can cool down an orbital strike to just obliterate anything in the general area, and her ultimate basically lets her become Homelander for a bit, flying around and shooting a deadly laser right from her face. She's probably my second least favorite character, but she's still definitely a lot of fun. But then, there's Leaper. And I don't know if I'm just doing something wrong, but I think this guy is really bad. His traversal acts differently depending on where you use it. On the ground, it causes him to do a super jump, but in the air, he'll do a dive bomb, slamming into the ground, which obviously deals damage. The area of effect is decent, but the damage isn't great unless you use it really high up, because the more falling before the impact, the more it ramps up. Now, he can use his leap to get up high because he can climb walls, but obviously that isn't something he can always do. Plus, when you land, an animation plays which leaves you vulnerable to damage, and it's not like his abilities are any better. His executable is an EMP that deals okay damage and stuns everything in the radius of it, but to actually make that radius worth using, you have to let it charge up first. While his ultimate puts a little barrier in front of him that absorbs damage and lets him shoot it back out. They're both okay, but I think the problem is that they take a while to actually get value from, whereas the other three characters' abilities are like instant, if not near instant. So compared to everyone else, he feels super slow and clunky. And that's not the only problem. 4 characters is not a lot, and I don't think there are plans to add any others given this achievement. A small roster isn't the end of the world, but even then 4 is pushing it, especially because the only thing to them is their abilities and their color. There's no unlockable alternate skills or costumes, they don't have unique endings, they don't have any kind of personality, and there's no sort of unique upgrade system to the characters. If there were more of them, it wouldn't be a problem, but when you've only got 4, they all need some real meat on their bones. There are so many cool concepts you can do with each character having their own traversal method. In fact, I came up with 10 in about 5 minutes, right here. Devs, if you're watching this, feel free to take any of these ideas, like, free of charge. I will not send my lawyers after you. There are also weapons, and I'ma keep it real with you. Despite there being a good 10, I only use 2, because progression is really bad. To get characters and weapons, you need to buy them using these blue cubes. Again, I'm sorry, I know there's definitely a name for them that I just do not remember. And it's not very good. You barely get any of them, and for some reason, when you buy a character, the price of the next one goes up. So, by the end, I didn't buy a single gun. I was just using the starting 2 to beat the game. So take this with a grain of salt, since I've only used the other weapons in the practice range, but as a whole, they're fine. They work on a heat system, with each gun building up heat the more you shoot, but you can remove the heat by using the gun's secondary fire, so you have to sort of keep this balance of using the primary and secondary shot, because if your weapon overheats, you can't use it for a good few seconds. My only complaint is that I wish the guns had a bit more of an oomph to them, you know what I mean? They all feel really dinky, like little children toys. They could all do with a little bit more screen shake, and the sound could also be a bit more crunchy, a bit more visceral, since they all feel very underwhelming, especially this bouncy plasma gun. It actually sounds like a kid's toy. I'm not making that up. But besides that, they're fine. You can use whatever weapon you want with any warden, so there's a lot of customization, and every weapon feels different. What doesn't feel different is how you upgrade yourself. It's also very akin to Risk of Rain. Scattered around the map are these interactables, and when you interact with them, you get a small little bonus in the form of an upgrade. Unlike Risk of Rain with its whole scrap mechanic, if you get an upgrade you don't want, you're kind of stuck with it, but to make up for that, every terminal has 3 different upgrade choices, so you're almost bound to get at least one thing that you want. It's different, but in a good way. You still get that feeling of gradually getting stronger in small little increments, just like you do in Risk of Rain. They pulled it off perfectly well. I don't think perfectly well makes sense, but you know what, I'm keeping that in. What's different in a bad way is the price, because for some reason, the prices are random. Each terminal's price is different because your guess is as good as mine. And I know that's really nitpicky, but it gets really annoying. The amount of times I went to a terminal just to be a few coins off was so frustrating. There's a reason every chest type in Risk of Rain will cost the same amount. It's just like a small little quality of life. And it's not like I can just ping it either to know how much it is, like I can in Risk of Rain. And we're not done with the comparison to Risk of Rain either, because my god, the bosses. Look at how they massacred my boy. In Risk of Rain, bosses are integrated seamlessly into the normal combat and live up to the title of boss, even when you're an unkillable demigod in the later loops. Here, it's different. Obviously, you can't just spawn in whenever you do an antenna like they do with the teleports, because here you've got to do it 3 times, so it would get very annoying. Instead, when you complete all of them, you get to this portal, and it transports you to a separate boss arena, and wow, these bosses are really bad. They're super easy, and the only problem you really gotta worry about is dying of boredom, because they take forever to kill. And there is no variety. You wanna know the order? First, you fight Berserker, who is super easy. Then you fight Fortress, who is super easy. Then you fight Berserker and Fortress at the same time, still easy. Then the Shy King, who doesn't even have a unique model, by the way, as far as I'm aware. Then finally, the Necro God. You fight Berserker and Fortress 3 different times as bosses. But I'm not even inclined to call them bosses, because they can just spawn in normally, like in Risk of Rain, how the bosses can spawn in normally as well. But you don't really get damage in this like you do in Risk of Rain. And I'm pretty sure their health isn't changed. Like, I'm pretty sure it's still the same as it is when they're bosses. So enjoy multi-long minute slogfests with them when they spawn in. They take forever to kill. Those are the only bosses, and there is no variety to them. Or the enemies, as a matter of fact, because unlike Risk of Rain with its elite system, here enemies just get these upgraded purple forms that make them a little bit more tanky and a little bit more deadlier. There's no special elite types or extra enemy variety. In fact, after the 3rd area, I'm pretty sure, your enemies just stop spawning in. All you get is like the purple upgraded counterparts. I don't think any of them are badly designed, with the exception of these purple fucks who disable your traversal. Yeah, that's annoying. But besides that, the enemies aren't bad. There just needs to be more variety in them. Whether that be by adding more enemies or adding like elite types, take your pick. Also, please get rid of these purple flying guys. Why does a game all about movement have an enemy that stops movement? It's like if there was the hero in Overwatch who made the game actually good. It's not supposed to be there. Why did you add it? And backtracking to the bosses for a second, but why is the final boss of this game a completely stationary bullet sponge who barely makes you utilize the mobility? There's like no platforming or anything like that. I don't know, it just feels like a missed opportunity. But the worst sin this game commits by far is its progression and variety. Because this is a roguelike. That is what roguelikes are known for. And it's just like my dad. Not there. Yes, I'm black. I know I don't sound it at all, but I am black. I can make that joke. I own that joke. There are only 5 areas, but to be fair, the game actually does have a unique solution to that. You can do the levels in whatever order you want once you beat them for the first time. So despite this lava place being the third area, after I beat it, it could be the first level I go to, and then the desert level next, which is the first level normally. I'll always love games that let you do levels in whatever order you want. And to be fair, every area is fairly unique. They all look distinct and have unique gameplay elements, but besides that, there is nothing in terms of progression and variety. Once you beat the game, that's it. No looping, no difficulty options, no alternate game modes, no stacking modifiers like Eclipse or Ascension. I was done with this game after a whopping 4 hours. I have a little bit more because I had to get footage, but you know, that's just to get footage. That's not like hours that I voluntarily spent. And that's really about it. Wow, this is even shorter than I expected. I was hoping I could stretch all this out to at least 5 pages at least, but couldn't even do that. Jesus Christ. Warden's Will is fun. Don't get me wrong. I had fun with this. Assuming you're not playing as Leaper, but that's Leaper, come on. But there is so little to do. YouTubers love doing food comparisons, so why don't I give it a try? Warden's Will is like having an amazing Wagyu steak. I hope I said that right. Just the steak. What's there is good. Sure, the bosses are a little underdone, but you can look past that because the rest of it is so good. But all you have is a steak. I'm gonna eat it in like 2 minutes. There's no sides, there's no drinks, there's no desserts. All you have is a really nice steak and nothing else. For some people, I'm sure that's good enough, but why should I bother with this steak when that steak is just as good, but it also comes with a side order of steamed vegetables and egg with a glass of wine and a lava cake for dessert? The core gameplay here is great. Again, bosses excluded, seriously, you gotta do something with those. But there is just nothing here, and how could you fix that? Well, I don't know anything about coding, but I'm gonna pretend like my opinion holds just as much weight anyway. I think the bosses need serious tweaking. Hell, maybe just a complete rework. Maybe instead of a separate fight arena, just make us fight them where the rift is, or something else to help out with the pace. Make the bosses harder, like way harder, but give them less health. It would make the fights feel way more frantic. Another thing I think needs a rework is the crystals. Yep, this is a gameplay mechanic I haven't mentioned because it's so pointless. You can destroy these crystals, scatter around the map, and they release this cloud that gives you a buff. I'm not gonna lie, you could remove this, and I don't think anything would change. If anything, they actually hurt the game even more, because this is how you recover health. You don't just regenerate it naturally, so you have to go scouring around the edges of the map for these health crystals. And because the area is really small and doesn't last that long, you better make sure you're close to it when you destroy it. Besides the healing crystals though, there's the shield crystal which gives you a little bit of extra health, which is cool I guess, and the energy and damage ones which just increase your energy or damage for a bit. But when am I going to use it? If you just got the buff when you destroyed it instead of having to go to the area, like the little cloud, it could kind of be cool. But I'm not going to bother leaving combat just to go get a brief damage buff. That's not worth it. No one is going to do that. And besides that, honestly, just add more stuff. More characters or customization for the already existing ones, maybe a few more weapons. The animated intro has Dasher using these dual pistols which do not show up in the game. Honestly, would love to see that. It would be awesome. Possibly a new area or two. Give us some kind of lore, please. Games can have non-intrusive lore. Look at the game that you clearly took inspiration from. Risk of Rain does not have intrusive lore. And obviously a progression system. Because right now, I've beat this game once and I don't really have a reason to go back to it. Sure, I mostly enjoyed it, but I could be playing games that I love more and be working towards something. That's really it. I know this video is super short, but that's because honestly there's barely a game here. I know there's a roadmap, but this game isn't in early access. I'm treating it like a full game, which I guess it technically is, but like, barely. It takes more than an ending to make a game. Stuff like other difficulties really should not be post-launch content. This is like Payday 3 adding the unready button. It's like, why did you have to add that post-launch? From what I can gather, the devs really do care. They comment on a lot of videos talking about the game, they're pretty active with the community, and I really hope the best, but I cannot recommend this game right now in its current state. I could never recommend it, unless it was like a pound or something. And it pains me to say that because I did have fun with this. Not as much fun as I wish I could be having, like the bosses. I know I keep complaining about them, but the bosses were really bad. But I did have fun. I don't really have anything else to say except if you're a dev watching this, hello. I do mean it when I say I had fun with this game, by the way. And with some work, it could actually be like a good contender to Risk of Rain. Seriously, I hope you keep cooking on this. But besides that, I don't know. This was a very different video to the ones I normally make. Maybe I'll make more like this. I don't know. Bye.
Check it out, I'm in the house like carpet. And if there's too many heads in my blunt, I won't spark it out, put it in my pocket and save it like rocket fuel. Till everybody's gone and it's cool, then I spark it up with my brother. His mama named him Moan, but I call him Moan Lover. And he's more than a cover, he's a quilt. We're putting shit together like the house that John built on a hill. Cause this shit gonna feel like velvet, turtle. My style fits tighter than a girdle. If you hate it, then you can just leave it like Beaver. But in a day or two I'll make you a true believer in me. Cause like the alphabet you'll see, that ism kicks a rhyme, not your everyday soliloquy. Like Chef Boyardee, my rhyme is truly cooking. Piece of Matty Rich cause he's straight out of Brooklyn, New York. I don't eat pork or swine when I dine. I drink a cup of Kool-Aid, not a big glass of wine or a Heineken. If you have time, I'll drop rhyme again.